I can't wait for you all to meet Leila Mottley. And just 20 years old she is. She is a writer to watch. Nightcrawling takes place in her hometown of Oakland and is inspired by some of the real life struggles of those marginalized in the community. But the story itself is fiction. The heroine, Kiera, is attempting to navigate the world of East Oakland, where she and her brother Marcus live without parents in an apartment that they can no longer afford. What unfolds next is a riveting tale of survival. I was struck by so many of the passages in the book, but this one, where she says, I don't want to walk out that door and pass by people with large hands who will touch me briefly and hum a sigh like we are sharing our own internal earthquakes, braving them together. I slide down to the floor, burrow in the racks of black where I'm encased in darkness. It is a relief to be removed from sight. Funeral day is a reckoning when we mimic thieves and really just find excuses for our tears, then light up, eat until we have never felt fuller, and find somewhere to dance. Leila enrolled at Smith College at the age of 17, and a year and a half later, the pandemic struck. She seized that moment to really focus on her writing career, and my goodness, did that pay off. Please help me give her a warm welcome. Hello, Leila.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Also with us today, 4 of our very own book club members, Kiona from New York, hello. Natalie from Seattle, Sue from Canada, and Kat from Santa Monica. Hello to you all, and thank you for reading with us. Before I give you all an opportunity to dive in and ask your questions of Leila, I think we all would like to get to know her a little better. We're also fascinated that you were just 16 when you started writing this book. We were talking about what we were doing when we were 16, wasn't writing novels. So what inspired you, Leila, at such a young age?
I mean, I've been writing since I learned how to pick up a pen. So I think it's always been a part of my life, but I wrote my first novel at 14 and then my second at 15, and this is my third, and I started it a month before I turned 17. And I think really it was that, I was 17 at the time and I felt like there weren't enough stories centered on Black teenage girls that allow us the opportunity to exist as our full, complete selves, which includes nuance and a spectrum of emotions and not the kind of judgment I think we often place on teenagers. So I wanted to write it while I was still in it.
I think for me, one of the reasons why I was excited so many years ago, and it was in 1996 when we first started this book club, I was always excited to call the authors and have a conversation with the authors because I'm fascinated how y'all do what you do. And over the years, I've talked to people who, like Maya Angelou used to always go check herself into a hotel and stay in a certain room where she would be inspired. Toni Morrison would get visitations from the characters. Some authors write in a bathtub, others spend a month in a secluded cabin in the woods. So where do you write and what inspires you?
Most of this book was written in a cafe, a jazz club, or on the bus, on the train, kind of while I was in transit. I also worked at a preschool the summer I wrote this book, and so while the kids were having nap time, wow, I would be writing in my journal. Kind of any moment that I could steal, I would take it. Writing can happen anywhere for me. Whenever I feel the urge, whenever I have a moment, I make it happen.
When I am reading, particularly reading for a book that I think will be a book club selection, I always give myself a set amount of time where I'm not doing anything else so that I can just fully lean in, concentrate, be there with it. I can't imagine teaching a class with little kids or riding on a bus and doing all that other stuff and even reading. So to be able to focus and compartmentalize means you're an extraordinary woman, an extraordinary writer. So many of the themes throughout Nightcrawling are weighted. And in this case, They're fictional, but they're not far from reality. Were there any real stories that guided your plot, or just living guided your plot?
In 2016, there was a case that broke in the Bay Area, and I'm born and raised in Oakland, so it consumed our local media, and it was where a young girl was sexually abused by a network of Bay Area police officers. And I remember being a young teenager at the time and watching this happen and really thinking about the way this reflected how young girls, particularly girls of color, aren't protected in this world, even by the people that we're told are supposed to protect us. And so then as, I got older, I was thinking about this idea of like, why don't we ever hear about cases of police sexual violence? Why don't we hear about cases of sexual violence in general, but particularly by people we're told are supposed to care for us? And so I started researching other cases of police sexual violence, very few of which ever make it to a courtroom or a newspaper. And I wanted to tell the story in the way that the media doesn't. I wanted to go beyond a headline and think about what does it mean for a survivor to be in narrative control.
That's pretty powerful. Because many of us hear stories in the news and we think, oh, that's a terrible thing. You empathize with that story and then it doesn't go any further. But then you went and did research and then let your imagination take hold and created this whole story of Kiara and all of the other characters. So I want to bring in our incredible book club members who have been reading along. This is such a great group. I know you all have questions, so I want you to get to it. Aren't you just kind of bedazzled by this young writer who started at 16? So Natalie, you're up, and I know you're curious about Leila's life experiences.
So, Kiara, I was really moved by how you articulated the emotions of Kiara throughout the book. Some of them really resonated with things that I have been healing in my own life. And I was really surprised at your age because I thought, well, how do you know to feel and to write like that? And is there anything that happened to you personally in your life? Maybe not that trauma, but a trauma, as you're willing to share, and how, if any, healing you have done in that process.
A lot of this book is about what it means to allow ourselves to be vulnerable when the world doesn't afford us that luxury. And so, I've experienced it. I think every young girl and woman has experienced walking in this world, walking down a street and feeling completely unprotected and fragile and not being able to express that because the world doesn't expect it from us. And the world expects us to, in fact, be able to move from that into caregiving for all of the people around us. So I definitely experienced that in my life. And I think it's really important that we have stories from young people about young people, because I think this world doesn't give us a lot of credit for the things that we experience even in our few years. So yeah, I think that healing from it is about confronting it and being able to acknowledge in ourselves what this world might not.
Kat, you have a question about Leila's writing process. Go ahead.
Yes, I was just so struck by the opening line of your book. It was, "The swimming pool is filled with dog shit, and Dee's laughter mocks us at dawn." The juxtaposition of something so beautiful and fun and traditionally luxurious and associated with leisure, and it's filled with literal shit. Were there a lot of drafts around that first line? And I also found it really interesting that you framed the story at that pool. And I wondered what the significance of that was.
This was the first line that was ever written, except for one word changed. The whole first page is pretty similar, and then after that, things shifted a lot. But I think that sometimes you just know where a story is meant to begin, and for this one, it was at the ship pool. So yeah, I think that water and this swimming pool in particular, like you said, shows dualities, and so much of this book is about how more than one thing can be true at once.
Well, I think that's your poetry coming through too. The swimming pool is filled with dog and Dee's laughter mocks us at dawn. That could be an entire poem.
Thank you.
Sue, you were struck by Layla's connection with Oakland and her use of water throughout the book, too. Tell us about that.
I too have grown up on a town with water, always surrounded by water, and it's been a place of solace. They just became characters unto themselves, it seems like. The water was always a character when she needed it, and the land was always, Oakland was a character. And was that a surprise to you when you were writing, or was that planned in your process?
I think I wanted from the beginning for this book to be an ode to Oakland, and I think especially because the media often represents Oakland as either this like violent, dangerous, crime-filled city or a city that is, on the come up. I think both of those don't depict Oakland in the way that I know it to be, which is a city that is like full of vibrant people and water and just all of these complex nuances that I think a lot of people don't even know about. So we're right by the bay, and water plays a huge role in the landscape of Oakland. But I also, like I was saying, I wanted it to be about dualities. How can you love the ocean and also recognize that the ships coming out of these docks sometimes carry bodies? And how can you love a pool and experience joy and light and delight in that pool and also have it be filled with literal feces? So I wanted there to be those things at once because Kiara experiences more than one thing at once. She loves a brother who refuses to acknowledge her. That was like my intention, was to create an image that really encapsulated Kiara and who she is and how she navigates the world.
So, Kiona, talk to us about the questions you have on the struggles of young relationships in the book.
I try to be there for my friends during their hardest time. And I feel like I was pretty upset with LA at a certain point in the book because I felt like there were at least two instances where she pretty much disappeared on Kiara during the times where Kiara, I felt, needed her the most. And considering what had happened with LA's sister, I would have thought LA would have been there for Kiara much more. So I just wanted to find out from you, was that your intent, to make Kiara feel like she literally had no one?
I think everyone around Kiara wants something from her and wants like nothing for her. And so part of my intention was to show the ways in which Black girls are raised to care for others before we care for ourselves. And part of that, even in friendships that we believe are important and ask little of us, sometimes the people we love the most won't show up for us. And Ale is one of those characters who at times fulfills something Kiara needs, but also can't all the time because she is experiencing her own grief.
I just wanted to ask you all, when you walked away from the book, you felt what? Kat, Sue, Kiona, Natalie?
I felt heavy, really heavy.
It was literal lump in my throat. I needed to cry. I needed to go cry and just sit.
I felt lighter. The sense of how she deals with grief. If you've had loss in your teenage years, which I have in my own life, I lost my mom when I was 12, and you turn things off, like Kira did, and to see that, it gave me a lightness and a gift.
Where Tony, is it Tony, was saying to her, let me help you. Like, she was so stuck on Marcus, her brother, like he's going to be there for me. And she believed in that. And a lot of times in life, we believe or we have expectations of the people we think are going to be there for us. And then Tony was there saying, hey, I'm here. And that happened multiple times in the book. And that like really touched me because that's part of my own experience, where the people that are there for me, I can't see it because I'm stuck on this expectation over here.
We wanted to just ask you a couple of rapid fire questions. So everybody has another question for you, beginning with you, Kat. What's your question?
If you could go to dinner with any author, dead or alive, who would it be?
Hands down, no. Either Jesmyn Ward or Toni Morrison, because you can't not say Toni Morrison. She is magical.
Can't not say. Yeah. I had already finished this book, had read another book, looking for book club, and I was just empty this weekend and had nothing to go to, so I went back to Sula. Yep, you can always go to Toni Morrison.
Always go back to Sula.
Always go back to Sula. Yeah. Natalie.
What's on your nightstand today? What are you reading now?
Right now I'm reading An American Marriage, which was a total coincidence. But yeah, I've been meaning to read it for a while, and I'm almost done.
So, if Nightcrawling ever turned into a movie, who would you want to be cast as Kiara?
I think I would want a young black actress who we don't know, who hasn't been a starring role. I think that I think the character Kiara really deserves someone who can embody her fully and who we can see her as only Kiara.
Sue.
What is your most treasured possession?
God, that's hard for me. I think I don't have a lot of material possessions that I would cling to. Maybe my journals. I've kept a journal since I was 5, and I have them all in a box, and I think that would be something I couldn't replace.
For sure. And you know, many authors write books and have books in their souls and their spirits, and once they send them out into the world, it's like a releasing, I've heard for them. And I'm wondering if it was the same thing for you, and what does it feel like to have Kiara and Nightcrawling out into the world?
It's still so surreal to have something that existed in your head for so long be in other people's heads. So I'm getting used to it, but it does feel like a letting go. She's like all of ours now. She's not just mine.
Leila, I read a passage at the beginning of this club, and I want you to end our club on one of your favorite moments from Nightcrawling.
Ale loops her arm around my shoulders and pulls me in, lifting her skateboard into the air and sighing. "Ain't it beautiful?" She shouts into the open air, and I twist my head around to take it all in. The construction still lines the alley, bang-banging wood into more wood, and I swear it's like the city is spiraling around us. Skyline popping up, a glorious portrait of windows and wheels that don't gotta be as large as they are. Ale's arm around me makes me want to skip, lift my knees to the sky the way we sway together. Oakland doesn't operate on a grid. We wind here, the streets pulling us closer to the bay, to where salt melts with street and bikes turn to trucks that moan and thrust forward at every light. Then they push us back toward the buildings, where shouts line the perimeter of the sidewalks, and with Ale here, I don't bother trying to decipher what they're saying or who they're saying it to. Just let the noises scatter, like chunks of asphalt out the road. I find my favorite murals, new swirls added to the backgrounds, bordered in tags.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that reading. Thank you, Leila. Thank you to all our book club members for joining us here today. For more content on our book club, you can follow our book club and become an Oprah Daily Insider, where you'll get access to and be able to participate in more exclusive conversations like this one that we just so enjoyed with Leila Mottley. Keep reading and see you all soon. Thank you.